Hello fellas. Welcome back to Top 5 Choices. This is Haley from Top 5 Choices, and I hope you all are doing good. In today's video, I am going to do a detailed review and pick the top 5 best budget laptops, 2022. After doing proper researches, we came to the conclusion that meets the best in terms of overall. Kindly leave a like if you find this helpful, and I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications if you haven't. We will be also providing affiliates link to purchase from Amazon. Kindly use it for best offers and purchase from anywhere in the world. We'll be back with more videos. The biggest shortcomings of the Lenovo IdeaPad Duet Chromebook come in its design. The magnetized kickstand cover and keyboard felt firmly secured to the tablet as we tested it, but we still found ourselves pulling the keyboard free without meaning to or pushing the entire back cover off while trying to extend the kickstand. These aren't earth-shattering failures, and fixing it is as simple as slapping the cover or keyboard back on, but it happened often enough that we can see some people getting frustrated with it. Unfortunately, the biggest problem with the Lenovo IdeaPad Duet Chromebook will be a deal-breaker for some people: the restrictive size of its keyboard and, to a lesser extent, the responsiveness of the trackpad. By laptop trackpad's already low standards, the Lenovo IdeaPad Duet Chromebooks can be sluggish and even lifeless at times. As for the keyboard, the keys are packed in very tight. Given the limited real estate it is working with, the keyboard and trackpad also don't have the same degree of tactile feedback that a lot of other laptops have. That means that touch sensing your way as you type can leave you all over the place for a while as you acclimate yourself to the key spacing. Meanwhile, tapping an unresponsive trackpad will quickly become frustrating for some people since there's no feedback to tell if a click is even physically registering. The vast majority of the time, the trackpad responds just fine, but when it doesn't, we have no real sense as to why. A much bigger issue is accessibility. For those with lower manual dexterity, such as those with a physical disability, or even just older folks who are not as nimble as they used to be, these problems aren't just amplified. In some instances, it would be all but impossible to ever overcome them. It's the kind of design flaw that just can't be overlooked anymore. Accessibility has been a major blind spot in tech for a while now, but it's something that we know how to fix. The industry is even making significant strides to address this long-standing problem, just not with the Lenovo IdeaPad Duet Chromebook, which is a real shame. The Acer Aspire 5 feels like a refuge from circa 2015. The slightly dated design is notable chiefly for big, fat bezels top and bottom of the 14-inch display. That said, slim side bezels at least ensure fairly compact overall proportions. At 1.7 kilograms and 17 millimeters thick, portability is decent and is aided by the compact 45W power supply. If you want something more stylish, head to our Asus VivoBook 15 vs Acer Aspire 5 comparison. The Asus is a slicker-looking laptop for a similar price, but there are compromises elsewhere. It's worth noting the power supply uses an old-school barrel connector. The Aspire 5 does have USB Type-C connectivity, but only for data. You can't charge it via USB-C, more's the pity. Still, one fringe benefit of the relative bezel bulge is plenty of space up top for proper webcam location. Your Zoom accomplices won't have to suffer the up-nose angle that blights some slim bezel laptops, at least. Another design throwback is the somewhat stingy plastic trackpad. If you've tried one of the modern-style larger glass-topped trackpads, it's awfully hard to revert. The Acer's trackpad feels constrained, limiting, and a little cheap by comparison. Still, it's reasonably solid, which is a sentiment that applies more broadly to the Acer Aspire 5. With its metal keyboard surround and screen enclosure, it feels ready to take a beating. The only exception is the keyboard. The bed is prone to a bit of bounce. The screen hinge is likewise robust, if anything it's a bit too stiff. Try to lift the Aspire 5 screen lid single-handedly, and the entire chassis comes along for the ride. Bummer. As for ports and connectivity, on the right-hand side of the chassis you'll discover a plain old USB Type-A 2.0 socket and a headphone jack. On the left there's HDMI, a pair of 5 gigabits per second USB 3.1 ports, plus a USB Type-C connector, again running at 5 gigabits per second. The only conspicuous omission is an SD card reader. Audio-wise, the Acer Aspire 5 is configured with a pair of bottom-firing stereo speakers at the front of the chassis. In terms of clarity and soundstage imaging, they're not actually all that bad. but the total absence of anything akin to bass and also very little by way of mid-range results in a very thin overall audio experience. Just like any Microsoft Surface device, the Surface Go 3 is truly a gorgeous little laptop, rivaling that of the iPad, especially the iPads available at this price point. It's incredibly thin at just 0.33 inches thick and weighs just 1.2 pounds, making it the ideal device to carry around if you don't want to go out with a hulking backpack every time you just want to get some work done at the coffee shop. The model we have in has the classic silver surface aesthetic, with the Windows logo in a gorgeous chrome finish on the back of the device on its hinge, where it's going to get the most attention. From behind, this is one of the more attractive devices you'll probably see in a cafe, but it's a different story from the front. Not a lot has changed in the Surface Go's design since the Surface Go 2, which means the chunky bezels are back again. It is a tablet, which means people will need a little bit of space for just holding the device, but there are so many tablets out there that have solved this problem already, including Microsoft's own Surface Pro 8, that it really feels like a relic. But, again, this is a budget device, so we're not expecting a truly extravagant piece of tech here. Between the bezels is a 10.5-inch 1920 by 1280 display. A 1280p display isn't exactly impressive on its own, especially in 2019, but given its price point, Microsoft could have easily given this a 720p display and called it good, and we're glad it didn't. But don't expect a totally beautiful display, either. The screen isn't especially bright, and color accuracy is a bit lacking. Watching animated shows like Sailor Moon or Bob's Burgers clearly reveals how lacking this display is in this area. Neither of these shows really need a high-resolution display, but they are extremely colorful and show how shallow the color representation here is. Colors appear a bit washed out and bland, which isn't the end of the world, but it is a bit disappointing in a PixelSense display. Speakers are similar. They'll provide a pretty decent experience if you just want to watch the odd YouTube video or watch some Netflix in your downtime, but they're not exactly great for listening to music. Though they are positioned near the top of the screen when the Surface Go 3 is in its laptop mode, which means there is minimal distortion. One of the benefits of a tablet. Acer continued its minimalist design aesthetic with this year's Acer Swift 3. Definitely taking a cue from the Apple MacBook Air, the thin, lightweight aluminum chassis should feel familiar to anyone acquainted with earlier Acer Swift 3 models. The matte silver finish with polished Acer logo on the back is about as flashy as the laptop gets, and, for some, that's exactly what they're looking for. Needless to say, you will have to supply the personality yourself. The Swift 3 measures in at 12.6 by 8.5 by 0.6 inches and weighs 2.7 pounds, making the device incredibly portable without feeling flimsy. In fact, once our cat got bored with the box and decided to investigate the power cable, she brought the open, running laptop down off a 3.5-foot tall desk onto a hardwood floor and bolted, leaving no visible or noticeable damage to the exterior or the internals of the laptop. While not in any way recommended as a test to run on your own machine, it's good to know that there's a chance that the Acer Swift 3 will survive in the real world. Speaking of opening it up, the Island-style keyboard features responsive, chiclet keys and a Windows Hello-enabled fingerprint scanner. While some might find the keyboard to be a bit cramped, the keys are spaced well for a laptop of its size and the black keys are backlit with soft white LEDs for better visibility. The trackpad is a good size and responds well during everyday, general use. It also handled itself pretty well in a few PC gaming sessions of Stellaris and Civilization 6, but anything more than that will need a separate mouse or gamepad. As for ports, Acer loaded up 2020 Swift 3 with a USB 2.0, a USB 3.0, and a USB-C Thunderbolt 3 port to go along with an HDMI port and headphone/mic jack. There's no SD card reader or optical drive, but that's pretty typical of an Ultrabook nowadays. The NVX 36013's touchscreen display measures 13.3 inches diagonally, a common screen size for ultraportables. It's available only in Full HD, 920 by 1080 pixel resolution, which I find perfectly adequate for most tasks, though you may occasionally see slightly fuzzy text. The laptop doesn't have the option of a 4K resolution or OLED display, both of which are available on the more expensive Spectre X36013. Our review unit's display has an LED backlight with a rated brightness of 400 nits, which is perfectly viewable in most indoor situations. Entry-level models have a dimmer 300 nit panel. HP also offers the Envy X360 with a 1000 nit display with integrated privacy filter, though I've found that while such screens do block adjacent seat snoops, they're harder to read and will likely only appeal to people who frequently access sensitive data in tight quarters. The display extends almost completely to the edges of the laptop, making the bezels extremely thin on the sides. The top bezel is slightly thicker to accommodate one of the Envy X360 13's niftiest features, a 720p webcam with a built-in privacy shutter. HP uses this automatic shutter on a few of its most recent laptop models, including the otherwise ho-hum Envy 17, and it's the best solution I've seen yet to addressing the problem of accidentally leaving your camera on. When you're not using the webcam, simply press the key to the right of the power button. You'll hear a faint click and see the white cover snap shut almost instantaneously. This is far better than placing a piece of tape over the webcam, and it's more elegant than a physical slider that requires you to close it manually. The only minor downside is that the mechanism takes up enough space that there's no room for IR sensors to let you log into Windows 10 via face recognition. You can use the fingerprint reader mounted on the keyboard for passwordless logins instead.